Hey everybody, welcome back to another 10-minute Marvel video. I'm Petter, and today we're going to be talking about a new rumor that has come out kind of with what Marvel's going to be doing after the Secret Wars multiverse saga kind of winds down. Now, I think some of this probably is going to feel fairly obvious, but at the same time, it is not as tightly contained as maybe as fans we would guess. I think, I did kind of my speculation video on that 10-year plan that Kevin Feige has for the X-Men and kind of laying out what that all looks like. And obviously the big focus I had there was X-Men, because that's going to be the new thing. That's going to be the cool new thing to check out in the MCU. But these rumors have more than just that. They actually throw down a three-pronged approach that I think may concern some people, and Greg and I talk about it on the 10-Minute Marvel podcast this week, and even bring up some of those concerns. It sounds like a lot. It sounds like this is going to be, you have to keep track of all these different things because they're going to come together in this big event, and that's going to be a lot of work. But we have to remember Kevin Feige's previous quote about how he doesn't want the MCU to feel like homework. And I think one of the things that might be happening here, if they actually do this three-pronged approach, is an attempt to reduce homework. So let's talk about the three prongs and then kind of dive into potential story or elements that may be coming there. The first prong that we're going to talk about, I'll say all three and then we'll talk about them. The first one is Cosmic Realms, followed by X-Men Evolution, and then the Supernatural, which was described in one of the scoops as it's going dark and demonic. Supernatural. A Guillermo del Toro fever dream, I believe, is the quote. And if that's the case, please get Guillermo del Toro to direct something for this, because he's the correct person to do that sort of crazy and dark. But those are the three different prongs. We're going to start out with the one that I think we all expected, X-Men. Actually, we're going to start out with why I think they're doing a three-pronged approach, and then we'll jump into X-Men, Realms, and Supernatural. I think they're doing a three-pronged approach because they're creating three different stories that you can follow. Now, you don't have to follow all three different stories. There's not going to necessarily be this big come-together moment for all these different stories. It might be for all these different characters, but they're going to treat it as, if you want to watch a supernatural story, here's the 4 films that maybe make up that arc. And really, it's not even an arc so much as you can pick and choose and watch the ones you want. Same with the X-Men. You're excited for the X-Men? I think most people will be. Okay. You can then just watch the X-Men stuff. If the Cosmic Realms and Supernatural aren't interesting to you, just watch the X-Men stuff. And the same can be said for Cosmic Realms. Now, obviously, there's a group of people, myself included, who's going to watch everything still. But I think the intentionality here is to say, we're not going to forget about the other characters. We're not just going to do X-Men, and that's going to be it. And we're going to do 2 mutant X-Men movies a year. You're going to have to watch all of those to culminate in some big event. Are big events still going to happen? Absolutely. I think they are. But I think that they intentionally picked out, and this is assuming these rumors are true, obviously, but I think they intentionally picked out 3 different areas that really are separate. Let's start out with the X-Men. Now, the X-Men obviously are big big story, big characters. I think we're likely to get something like Age of Apocalypse kind of being the first thing that they go for, with maybe a sub-villain leading up to that in Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister might be who the X-Men face off for a couple movies before we realize that Mr. Sinister's working for Apocalypse. That, to me, is that nice... Age of Apocalypse is a nice big event that you can build towards, and with the X-Men you can spread that out and kind of do a whole bunch of different things. Or you could do an Avengers versus X-Men. I don't know that we're going to see that so quickly, because I think they really want to let the X-Men shine. And as you noticed from the 3 different prongs here, none of them are Avengers. Wasn't like New Avengers Initiative or stuff like that. Sure, those could show up still, but that's not going to be like a major focus for anything. Now, the X-Men have their very specific focus here. They're dealing with the bigotry that comes from people being scared of them, some due to what they can do and what villains within the mutant population do, and some just because it's something new, it's something different. So that's kind of that focus, and that's why they're not going to necessarily be showing up in other things. They're not going to be showing up in the cosmic realms, and they're not going to be showing up in the supernatural, because they're dealing with their own issues. And since this is kind of the first appearance of them, there's no reason to overlap. Next up, let's talk Supernatural. Supernatural, this one I have the hardest time kind of pinpointing what I think a story might be for it, but that might get cleared up in Ironheart here. If we get Mephisto would be an interesting villain to run with. Kind of somebody who messes with people and makes deals, isn't necessarily... is kind of mustache-twirlingly evil by giving people options, but it always has a cost that is so high. So I could see something like that. I do think vampires is going to be part of it. And this one might just be more kind of traditional horror, in that you get your villain of... your monster of the episode, your monster of the movie. So we could have Blade going off against vampires. We could then have the Black Knight and the Midnight Suns get formed, and they go off against Mephisto or Chthon, whomever. There's plenty of different options kind of in that supernatural element for Marvel to mess with. We have witches too, and generally they haven't been seen as too bad. Agatha is the worst of them that we've seen, so that to me is kind of where that one could go. Excuse me. And then the final one is Cosmic Realms. Oh, and before we get to Cosmic Realms, actually, I wanted to talk about Supernatural and why that doesn't overlap with anything else. First off, doesn't make sense. Cosmic Realms, cosmic. Supernatural, Earth. That's kind of the difference between those two. But also, why not then tie it into stuff that the Avengers are doing, or stuff that the X-Men are doing? The big thing that Supernatural hates is people knowing about it. Because the second people know there are vampires, and I truly know it and believe it, people are going to be terrified of them and try and hunt down all vampires. It works better for them to hide in the shadows, and only the few kooks, from kind of the general populace perspective, who claim they exist, are the ones to fight them. So that's why it doesn't really spread further than that, why other people aren't looking into it. Sure, we've had the line in Falcon and the Winter Soldier where Sam talks about vampires. That information must exist, but it isn't pervasive. And vampires must not be perceived as a massive threat. So they're going to try and keep themselves in a way, and the Midnight Suns and whoever deals with the supernatural, people are going to look at them like, you're a bit nuts. So then let's talk about cosmic. Now, cosmic realms is how it was put, and this to me says, one, we're probably going to get Nova. It feels like we're going to get Nova, and it feels like we're going to get Annihilus and the Annihilation Wave. I think that that would be a perfect kind of thing to deal with, because you could have some crazy things going on in space. You could bring in Galactus if you want. That shows up in the Annihilation storyline. But it also takes place in space. So you can pull in different cosmic actors. This is where you potentially, if you want to take Thor down this direction, if you want to bring back Guardians of the Galaxy team, the new characters in that, this is where you can do that. Or if you want to bring back some of the Guardians of the Galaxy members, this is where you can do that. Plus, introducing characters like Nova. Introducing maybe Shi'ar. And those characters, bringing them into the storyline and progressing it that way. I think that there's a lot of interesting things that you can do there. Now you might be like, well, what about realms in that? This is definitely cosmic, but so Annihilus comes from the null dimension or negative dimension, negative zone, I believe. It's been a while since I read that comic, and that could be considered a realm here. I think it would also then potentially touch on things like Valhalla, like what we've seen with the different afterlives. It's a chance for them maybe to pay off some stuff around there. We know of the Nor dimension, the quantum realm. This is going to be the dark dimension. It's going to be their chance to deal with a lot of those different sort of things that are tied specifically to a universe, or like the fabric between universes, without touching like a different universe again. So that's how I think they're going to tackle that one. I think Annihilation Wave, and just have it not target Earth, is a great way to handle this. Go after the Kree. Go after the Skrull. Go after the Chitauri. There's a lot of different space groups that could be targeted first. Nova. What does it look like after the events of Secret Wars? Do we have Nova back and the Nova Corps? Is that all going to be back to potentially just be wiped out again? So that's how I think they can keep them all separate. Now, as I talked about that, you can see that they are very separate. Like, sure, maybe some overlap between the X-Men and Supernatural could occur. And it has occurred in the comics. Jubilee was a vampire for a period of time. But it doesn't have to. And there's nothing that inherently says, okay, these kooks who are going after monsters, they're not going to go after and help the X-Men with their problems. That's a big public-facing problem. These people who are seen as kooks know that they're seen as kooks. And they aren't going to want to undermine what the important issues that the X-Men are facing. And the X-Men, just are going to have a lot of problems that they need to face themselves. So, let me know your thoughts on my theory. Is there some supernatural storyline that I should check out that you think they could tackle? And I think depending on if they use Doctor Strange with the supernatural, I think that opens up some possibilities. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this content, please give the video a thumbs up. Like I said, Greg and I talked about this on the 10-Minute Marvel podcast this week. You can find that episode here on YouTube. Click onto the channel, subscribe, and click that notification bell if you haven't already. We appreciate everybody who has, and is joining and checking out of these videos, and then click on the podcast tab. Or you can search for 10-Minute Marvel wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcast from. But with that, we'll see you next time.